I'm here with an extraordinary animal, a four-legged creature with fur all over his body. Some call him man's best friend. I call him Bert. So that was my take of Sir David Attenborough. If you have never, ever seen any documentaries with Sir David Attenborough, there is a high chance you are thinking, what on earth has happened to Alice and why is she speaking like that? Make sure you go and do yourself a favour and watch multiple documentaries, or just go to YouTube and see some absolutely epic little short clips with David Attenborough. He is a naturalist. He shines a light on the natural world, and he has created countless incredible animal and nature documentaries and shared them with the planet. And so he is our Guess Who for this week. And as usual, you get to pick 3 character strengths that you think represent Sir David. And remember, there may be some character strengths that we couldn't fit on the balloon. And feel free to say them. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about his story. I'll do the best job that I can, but he's 94, so he's had a lot of life. So I've got to kind of jam it into a tiny little micro lesson for you guys. So, first interesting fact about Sir David Attenborough is he was born in the same year as Queen Elizabeth II, a few weeks apart, which I think is quite remarkable. He grew up and he absolutely adored animals. From a very young age, he wanted to look at them and play with them and observe them. No matter what sort of animal it was, he was always trying to sort of suss out what their life was like, what they ate, how they slept. He was even fascinated in fossils. In fact, he used to ride his bike and just go and try and dig up fossils as much as possible. And at a very young age, he was actually sent a dried seahorse. And from that moment on, he committed that he would be a naturalist, that he would study animals, he would study the natural world. And that's what he did. He went to university and he studied the natural world, and he studied zoology as well. And he went on to study something called anthropology, which is the study of humans. And he decided, you know what, I need to spread the word. I'm going to go for a job at the BBC. You know, we've got the ABC, the BBC. He thought, I'm going to be on their radio, and he's got an amazing voice. I did not do it justice then. But he went for the job. He was really excited, got rejected, which would have been disappointed. But having the courage to go for the job and get rejected meant that they went, hey, but you know what would be cool is TV is just starting to be a bit more of a thing. Why don't you be on a TV show and you can bring animals from the zoo and talk about them? So that's what he did. There he is there with an armadillo, I believe. And it was so popular. And people loved tuning in to watch David Attenborough talk about animals from the zoo. But David Attenborough really wanted to go into the wild. He loved the zoo, but he really wanted to observe animals in their natural habitat and to actually show the world that what animals look like in their natural habitat. And this is actually a page from one of the books that I have about David Attenborough. These series are fantastic as a side note. They're Little People, Big Dreams, and they've got them on all sorts of incredible people. And this just sort of, I guess, highlights, I loved this image here because you can see multi-ages are enjoying watching David Attenborough with a rhino. For the first time, animals were really brought to life and brought into people's living rooms from across the world. And this is a very sort of common image that you would see if you watch any of these documentaries. Very captivating, engaging, charismatic. He's got a meerkat on his shoulder there, endless energy. And he brought these incredible images back around the world. Millions of people were tuning in and watching turtles from the Galapagos and wonderful manta rays and majestic lions. And then he started to notice something as he was working, that more and more of the planet was actually getting cut down and animals were losing their habitat. But, you know, when he first started his role, he was just there to report on natural animals and their habitat and the way they lived. But he was really starting to notice the fact that there was environmental devastation happening. And he says here about the orangutans, every bit of the rainforest that is knocked down is less space for orangutans. They have been reduced very seriously in the past decade, and we must do all we can to reverse this devastation. He ended up being knighted by the Queen, the same Queen he was born a few weeks apart from. So he, in 1985, he received a knighthood, which is why he's called Sir David Attenborough. It's quite a big deal. Now, he didn't just bring to life animals, in those sort of really obvious places in incredible countries in Africa and India. He also went deep, deep, deep into the ocean. And for the first time, animals were captured on film that we didn't even know existed. So, for instance, look at this one. He introduced millions to the wonders of the sea. This one's actually called a hairy anglerfish. And this one down here is called a Dumbo octopus. So it was the first time that they'd ever been captured on film. Now, this is a blank screen, and it's actually to remind me, the sound doesn't work as well, to really encourage you to go and watch Attenborough with a lyrebird. Now, lyrebirds are very, very shy, so he talks in a whisper, which is why I can't play it, because you won't be able to hear it. But the lyrebird does an incredible mimic. Again, he's really spotlighting how incredible the natural world is and how we should really be protecting it. And he's incredibly courageous. So this is him in 2015. So he's now 94, so he would have been 90. He dived 1,000 feet in what's called a submersible off the Australian coast to film previously unseen parts of the Great Barrier Reef. So he broke the record for the deepest ever dive on the reef. He also did a documentary with his friend, the Queen. It's called The Queen's Green Planet, where they spotlighted all the countries within the Commonwealth where she was planning on reforesting. And he's got such a sense of adventure. Look, here he is here with some penguins, almost looking like he's having a conversation with them. And he says here, I just wish the world was twice as big and half of it was still unexplored. So a real curiosity and a desire to see the world, great sense of adventure. He's so well known and so loved that there are 10 plants and animals that have been named after him. This is a page from that book that I was talking about before. One of my favourite is the giant carnivorous plant that actually devours animals as large as rats, which is quite fitting because the only animal that Sir David does not like, apparently, are rats. And this one I'm going to butcher the Latin, but I'm going to give it a go. The plant's called Nepetus Attenborough. Attenborough. I really should have put more hours into my Latin back in school. But you can look it up. And there's even a dinosaur. Look at that. Attenborosaurus. Amazing. And a ship. Now, when I think about challenges for Sir David, I think they're still continuing because you think he's spending so much of his life in the natural environment and he is literally watching it be destroyed before his eyes. And he's spent so much time now trying to relay that message to governments and to people. And so what he wants to do is to show how precious the natural environment is as a way to inspire us all to take action. And so he starts noticing that things are melting, that polar bears are drowning, and that the habitats, that the animals that he'd been filming and their habitats were seriously under threat. And he says here, ever since we arrived on this planet as a species, we've cut them down, he's referring to trees, dug them up, burnt them and poisoned them. Today we're doing so on a greater scale than ever. In the last few years, he started a series on the BBC called Climate Change, The Facts. It's really thought-provoking and really alarming as well. And he paints a very dire picture of what's happening to the environment and to the natural world. But I love, he's still optimistic. So he says here, we are running out of time, but there is still hope. And he really is incredibly passionate. He knows how important it is that we have animals that live in the wild, that we protect them, that we do more right now. He says he puts this to everyone, the question is, are we happy to suppose that our grandchildren may never be able to see an elephant except in a picture book? I think what's incredible about David Attenborough is he really, not only does he have a huge passion for his work, but he does it in such an incredibly engaging way. What he does is he inspires us to want to protect and nurture the natural world. And he's so eloquent and articulate about it. He talks about the natural world being the greatest source of excitement, the greatest source of visual beauty, the greatest source of intellectual interest, and it is the greatest source of so much in life that makes life worth living. And I think what I've, a consistent message that I'm trying to say here is, instead of scaring us all to act in a positive way about climate change, what he's trying to do is inspire us. He's really trying to take this huge challenge and inspire us all to act against climate change by really showcasing the natural world. And he says people must feel that the natural world is important and valuable and beautiful and wonderful and an amazement and a pleasure. Now, during lockdown, and this is still very much continuing in the UK, he has actually been providing free geography lessons, which is pretty cool, on the BBC, bite-sized lessons. So that's a very rare and exciting opportunity that he's doing that. So what do you think? So David Attenborough, here he is, quite blonde there. So imagine him a few years ago. What do you think of this wise character? What are the 3 character strengths that you would give? And remember, there's one, I'm thinking of one that's not on there. It's quite a long one. Have a little think. This is the pausing action where you pause it. Okay, so you're back. I'm going to go with the love of learning. From a very young age, he just wanted to read and devour knowledge. I'm going to go with curiosity. He's got this huge sense of awe and wonder, and justice. He's dedicated his life to really, he's very open about the fact that he didn't go into this to necessarily become an activist and protect the natural world, but he certainly feels that now in the last 20 years. So I think he's got a huge sense of justice, that the natural world deserves to be protected. All right, guys, that's Guess Who. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.